Awesome.
Yes. Thank you for being here. Thanks for saying yes to the podcast invitation.
Oh, thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, really, I think the first question that I like to go over with everybody is a pretty basic one. And, it's just tell me what you do.
So I am a Bodytalk practitioner.
Oh, that's we taught you said this, and I was like, holy cow, this would be really cool. So I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'm just like super excited.
Yeah, Bodytalk is really cool. So do you know much about it?
No, I don't, but you were telling me a little bit about it and it sounded intriguing and interesting to me.
Yeah, so I'll kind of just describe what it is. So our bodies have what I call an innate intelligence system. And so the way Bodytalk works is it works with pretty much communicating with your higher self. And your higher self knows everything, right? And so what I do is I muscle test your body, and I ask your body yes or no questions to get to the root of the issue, whether it's a trapped emotion, an imbalance, if your energy centers are out of alignment. And then we release those things or balance them by breathing techniques and tapping.
Oh, okay. Sorry. So I know we're doing this through Zoom, but say that one more time. You release them by doing what?
We release them through breathing technique.
Okay.
And tapping.
Okay. Tapping.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of EMF tapping?
Yeah, I have. I've heard of that. Like where, I've done, I've had the opportunity to meet some like, like shamans and medicine people like that. Right. So, so I'm familiar with that kind of idea, but how did you get started into this? Is this something you grew up with, or did you find it on your own, or how did this come to be?
So it's kind of a crazy experience. I never believed in like energy healing or even holistic healing, really. I was very one-sided. Like I thought if you were an energy healer or wore crystals or used essential oils, I thought you were just a weird hippie. And that's the honest truth. And it wasn't until about 4 years ago I actually had a near-death experience. And that experience alone is what it forced me to heal my body, my mind, and my soul. And that is what sent me into energy healing. And I've just kept researching and going along with it. And then I became a Bodytalk practitioner.
Holy cow. That's crazy. Yeah. So these Bodytalk techniques worked for you in your experience.
Yeah, so I had my own testimony with it, and I'm happy to share that.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, if you feel comfortable, go ahead.
Yeah, of course. So I have 3 children. Okay. Our youngest son is almost 2. And after I had him, I had a C-section. And after I had him, I began to have like bladder spasms. And these spasms would go in my bladder and up my back and down my legs. And they would last 6, 8, 10 hours of just these debilitating, like Charlie horse like spasms.
Yeah.
And I went to my doctor and, I tried different supplements thinking I was deficient in something. And I talked to my friend about it. And she says, you should go see this lady that releases trapped emotions. And I'm already into energy stuff by now. And so I was like, okay, I'll go see her. Yeah. And that was the very first thing she brought up, because Bodytalk works by priority. So whatever comes up first, that's what you need to address. And you kind of work your way down the list. Well, that was the first thing that came up. And so I told her what was happening. And it was actually a trapped emotion from my childhood. And having my son triggered that in me, which created this blockage of energy in my bladder, which created bladder spasms. And she released it, and I have not had bladder spasm ever since.
Wow. Well, that's a lot of people don't understand that, but that's something that's really true, that your body reacts to these emotions that you have, right? I mean, one of the most common ones that people would start, would open a door to have that conversation would be something like stress, right? Like these emotional stressors that make you sick to your stomach or or that make you, or that make you hurt, you give you migraines and things like that, right? Is that kind of similar? Am I on the right track?
Oh yeah. Trapped emotions can come out in so many different ways, because
Yeah.
if you think about it, emotions are just big balls of energy, right? Like we're energy, the desk
Yeah.
is energy, everything is energy. And so when you get a trapped emotion, what happens is, say you have conflict with somebody, it comes in through your mouth and it goes into your heart, which is that sinking in the chest feeling, right? Where you're just like heartache, you can't
Yeah.
breathe. And then it goes down into your diaphragm and it goes into your stomach, which is the nausea, the kick in the stomach sensation. And it hangs out in your diaphragm, and your body will actually just kind of fling it and stick it wherever it wants. And so you can have these big balls of energy blockages all over your body. And it can
Interesting.
manifest into like back pain or migraines, anxiety, depression, because your energy is not flowing how it's supposed to. It's almost like a hose when it gets kinked. And so
Yeah.
there's all these little blockages that it's trying to work its way through.
Yeah. And how long have you been doing this?
I've been a Bodytalk practitioner for about 6 months, but I've been doing energy stuff for about 4 years.
That's pretty sweet. I mean, I mean, it just makes it like what, it's not that foreign to me, right? I actually like talking about these things because I've learned that, while medicine and like, especially like Western medicine and doctors certainly have their place and people should go there. I think it's always interesting to hear like about these alternative healings because they're real. Like some of them are very real. Some of them, aren't, but there is certainly like this one, they're real, right?
Oh,
I think a lot of
absolutely.
people miss that.
Yeah. And
They're
the thing that
skeptical.
yeah, yes, for sure. And I was totally one of those people. I did not believe it until I witnessed and like experienced it myself. But
Yeah.
what I love about Body Talk is that it, as intuitive as I am, Body Talk doesn't really do a whole lot of intuition stuff. I'm muscle testing your body, so your body is literally telling me the issue, and I'm just relaying the
Interesting.
information back to you. So it's so simple. But you do have a lot of skeptical people, and honestly, those are my favorite clients because they have the biggest transformations because they were so not expecting that, and then
Oh
their
yeah.
minds are open, and they're like, "Oh my gosh!" And it's
Yeah.
just it's incredible. It really is.
So, I mean, we've kind of talked about this, but there's a lot of people who are skeptic about this kind of stuff. I guess why do you think so many people are so skeptical about, these kind of, these more Eastern and more alternative ways of healing our bodies?
I honestly think it's just not our culture. I think we're
Yeah.
just kind of raised and programmed to believe that there's like
Yeah.
a one size fits all. And my biggest thing that I tell my own clients is that healing is not a one size fits all. You
Yeah.
have to have a little bit of Western medicine if that's what you need. If you need lab work, maybe you're deficient. You need body talk. You need foot zoning. You need
Yeah.
chiropractic, you need Reiki. You use so many different modalities to heal your body as a whole. Like it is
Yeah.
not a one size fits all. So I'm one small piece of the puzzle. But when you're
Right.
healing
Right.
your whole self, you use all different types of modalities and it comes together as one. And I feel like
Yeah.
just in our culture, we're so programmed to dismiss it. And I'm not really sure why. I think that we've been so focused on Western medicine for so
Yeah.
long that we kind of forgot about Eastern medicine and all of these other modalities.
Yeah, well, and one of the things I think that contributes to that is really just people not knowing. And like
Yeah.
and also like a lot of people are like scared. They have these preconceived notions about wherever this comes from. You know what I mean? And it's actually kind of sad because I found myself similarly like you thinking like no way, like we're not going to do that, stuff like that. But have since like really changed my mind because I've seen some of it like really work, you know what I mean? And you said you started this 4 months ago, like almost smack dab in the middle of the pandemic. Like, what made you start then?
Well, I always knew I wanted to do energy healing. Like ever since I had
Okay.
my near-death experience and it kind of opened my eyes, that's what I knew I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I just I just loved Bodytalk is what it was. Like it spoke to my soul on such a
Yeah.
deep level that it was like a non-negotiable. Like there was no choice but to become a practitioner and start my business, because I know
Right.
that it changed my life and I could change so many other people's, especially during a pandemic where I feel like people need healing because there is so much going on right now. And
Right.
so I just went all in, and
Yeah.
I'm so glad that I did. I've been very blessed and I haven't been affected by the pandemic in that way. Like I have clients, I have business, and I feel like it's needed on such, like on a soul level, I feel like it's needed right now.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and a lot of people don't realize that, like don't realize that they have these underlying traumas that are affecting, um, excuse me, how they live and how they work. Like, and some of them just don't want to believe that it's there, right? So have you found that to be a hard part for you? Like doing this body talking, kind of like digging up these underlying issues that are coming up. How does that go over?
So most of my clients, by the time they get to me, they have exhausted a lot of options.
Right.
And
Yeah, I'm
most of
sure.
them are so ready to heal. Like just how I found energy healing, I was so defeated and broken down that I was like, I am going to go see this weird hippie lady and I'm just going to go see what she has to say, because it didn't matter at that
Yeah.
point. Like
Yeah.
I was so desperate for healing that I didn't care if I had to stand on my head or do whatever, you know? And
Right. Right.
a lot of my clients are to that point. They've exhausted many, many options. And so they're open to receiving what I have to say and kind of what Bodytalk has to offer. And
Yeah.
the beautiful thing with Bodytalk is that it never brings up anything that you're not ready to let go of. And so
Mm,
there's no trigger. There's not a lot of talking in Bodytalk because I'm communicating with your body, not so much your logical mind. And so my clients don't get triggered, but we're able to energetically release so much that they walk away feeling amazing. And it's
yeah.
just, it is one of the most phenomenal modalities.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can really tell that. I mean, I can tell that. And how does the session go? So, I mean, walk me through just like a sample of like what
Okay.
you do.
Yeah. So I bring them down. I have a massage table that they just lay down on. And I put their hand kind of over their chest, and I just sit and I play with their wrist. And, you know, I explain how it works. It never brings up anything you're not ready to let go of. And how I actually do it is I navigate a large chart. And it's
Mm,
kind of like a highway, and you kind of go up the highway and down, and there's all these little off ramps of different details. So whether it's a trapped emotion or something within an organ or an endocrine system, it can pick up things like in your brain if there's an imbalance somewhere, hormone issues, allergies, intolerances. And so I ask your body a lot of questions to get to the root of the issue. We acknowledge it. I tell you what the issue is, and then we tap and we breathe. It's so
yeah.
simple.
Yeah. That's really interesting, you know, that you mentioned a lot of these things, because I've had quite a few of as far as like yoga, massage therapist, Reiki's, like I've talked to a few people who are in these different areas, and it's always like super interesting to me when they bring up like these. So you mentioned, like anxiety or intolerances or hormones. I've had like dietitians come on, where they talk about similar things, where they're like, we can fix a lot of these issues just by diet. You know what I mean? And so I guess from like my point of view, and from somebody who, because I'm still very much in touch with those views of like the people who are skeptical, although I'm ready and down to try whatever, because I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
I like the experiences. But a lot of people don't realize these things, that a lot of these things can be fixed with like without these sometimes harsh medications, right? Sometimes it's diet, sometimes it's these breathing exercises, sometimes it's yoga, sometimes it's these different modalities, as you mentioned, right? And it just shocks me that people just won't buy into that, because your body is such an amazing thing that can just heal itself if you give it the right tools and you let it work.
Yeah, totally. I totally agree. Our bodies are so intelligent.
Yeah.
And I'll, I, I'll tell you a short story. So
Yeah.
after
Yeah.
my near-death experience, I developed anxiety to the extreme. I always had social anxiety. This anxiety was debilitating, and I actually did not leave my house for almost a year. I would not drive. I would not leave my house. I couldn't leave my kids. It took everything from us, right? And energy healing, and I tell my clients this all the time, like, it is the one thing that truly saved me, because when you heal, like, you're not healing your 30-year-old self, right? Like, when we're
Yeah.
healing our inner child, and it goes back all the way to childhood, and that trauma and those trapped emotions, they are generational. Like, it goes back 7 generations. And so
Mhm.
you actually have characteristics and trapped emotions from your grandparents that you're carrying on, and it's just like this cycle that continues until we actually heal. But
Interesting.
it's the one thing that actually helped my anxiety. I've been on meds. I done all the supplements. I did talk therapy. I did it all. And energy
Yeah.
healing was the one thing that I feel like set me free, honestly. And it's not just body talk. Like, it's everything energy.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Again, it's just crazy because I know I like, I can even feel the passion, like when you're talking, and it's really fun, you know. And when you talk about things like, you know, about these emotions that are trapped inside, and that, you know, we have stuff from our, well, like, and that's obvious. Like, to me, like, we carry stuff, we bring stuff into our life from our parents, from our grandparents. And it's like these chains, right? We're born into these chains, and you eventually got to break them. So how do you, and this is just with your, and I'm assuming you break these chains, these emotions that you carry from your relatives, and from, you know, who we're descendants of. How did you learn this stuff? Like, where did this come from?
So I learned it just through my own research, taking body talk courses. If there is a course that is about what I love, which is energy stuff or emotional wellness, I
Yeah.
take it, because
Yeah.
I am a believer in just growing your knowledge. Like, knowledge is power, and
Hmm.
I believe that to my core. And so I just research, I read, I listen to podcasts, that's what I do all the time. I don't really watch TV. I don't really listen to music anymore, which is
Good
something
for
that I've
you.
loved. But I feel like those things just building my knowledge, like, really
Yeah.
fills my cup. And so I've learned a
Yeah.
little bit of just everything along my journey the last few years.
Yeah. Are there like certifications for body talk practitioners, for energy healers?
It depends on what you do.
Okay.
So body talk, yes, there is a certification. Like Reiki, you get a certification. So it just depends. Like, there are a lot of energy healers. And so my biggest thing is just,
Yeah.
like, go with your intuition and make sure,
Right.
because intention is everything.
Yeah.
And so just make sure you're going to somebody that truly has your best intention, because sometimes you don't need a certification for
Yeah.
things. And so just be mindful and do your due diligence, and make sure you're
Yeah.
going to somebody that you trust.
Yeah. Well, and I certainly, you know, didn't mean anything by, like, you know, if somebody doesn't have a certification, that is invalid, right? I'm just
Yeah.
curious, because a lot of the reasons I like bringing these topics up, and I like bringing people on, is because, you know, I don't think that you need a certification or college education to help people and to make money, right? But a lot of people who hear these like, want to get into this kind of stuff. You know, maybe they hear this and they found something that they like, you know. And so that's just where I'm like, you know, how does somebody learn about this, you know, if they want to get into it?
Yeah, if you wanted to get into body talk, they have a website. They offer dozens of different courses.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
would just start with the fundamentals and work your way up.
Yeah.
And it's
Well,
just go
go ahead.
slow. And no, go ahead.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, because that's one thing, you know, people just like, I love it. You know, I love when people can learn about something and then figure out how to go make it profitable and go help people. You know what I mean? Have you found that this has been something that people have been looking for?
Yes. Because out of all of the energy modalities that I have tried, I never knew about body talk until about a year ago. I had no idea that it was even a thing. And so I feel
Yeah.
like it is one of those, like, unknown modalities that can just transform so many things. And if you are called to do it, go start taking courses, or like
Yeah.
you can contact me and I'll kind of like help you navigate, because
Yeah,
it
through it all.
can be overwhelming at the beginning, just even diving into it and like finding what works for you. Like it's a lot with any kind of subject.
Yeah.
So just go slow and take your time and find a good community that supports you.
Well, and I'm glad you brought up community. I'm sure, like, I know as far as like alternative healing, excuse me, you know, as far as that whole industry, as that whole community, it's a really big community. You know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah.
Like there's a
Oh yeah.
lot of people you wouldn't like. That's what blows my mind is when I meet somebody and they haven't heard about this stuff or they think it's crazy. I'm like, if you've never met people in that community, you know, you need to, because like there's so many good things going on in that industry, in that community. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I totally agree. I had no idea the amount of people that were into like
Yeah.
energy therapy or even just like holistic healing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when I started diving into it, I was like, oh my gosh, like there's so many of you.
Yeah. And there's so many people who've been doing it for such a long time.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
you know what I mean? Like years and years, 20, 30, 40 years. And I just think it's cool because I like what you mentioned too, like to kind of go with your intuition and kind of figure it out, because there's a lot of good people, like majority, you know, and then there's some charlatans out there, right, who try to take advantage of people, because you can use your energy for things that aren't good too. Like people can manipulate your energy into things that aren't good for you. Like I know that's real.
Oh
I
yeah,
felt that.
absolutely.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
same. Yeah, you can definitely, it's all about integrity. Like, isn't
It
it?
really
Like,
is. Yeah.
no matter what you do, just have integrity and good intention
Yeah.
and just show up. Like, I feel like though, like if you do that, you're gold, you know?
Yeah. 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 So let me ask you this, like what are some like challenges that you face in like your industry, and like how do you get help with that?
So personally, my biggest challenge business wise is probably just finding a space. That's been like my biggest struggle. Like I currently practice in my home, which I love, but to have my own separate space. But honestly, my biggest struggle with business has been self-worth. Like if you were
Mm,
to ask me, if it wasn't just business, it would be self-worth, because
okay.
that is the one thing that I feel like not only myself, but everybody struggles with. And I have second guessed my skill set. I've second guessed
Mm,
my knowledge, not feeling worthy or capable, just like all the
yeah.
stories we
Well,
tell ourselves.
kind of like I think Amy Cuddy calls it like imposter syndrome. You know, just kind of
Yes.
like I shouldn't be, you know, you have those feelings even though you're qualified, you help a lot of people, you still have those feelings of like I don't know if I can do this.
Yeah. It's funny because I do courses for women, and it's all
Okay.
about like belief systems, right? And there's a part in there that says like I was a never enougher. And that's like still
Mm,
something I struggle with. Like you're never smart enough,
yeah.
skilled enough, qualified enough, but they're all
Yeah.
lies. And so that is the one thing that I think has held me back in my business. Given, I worked through it, but if you were to put
Sure. Sure.
a, a, a stamp on it, that's
Yeah.
what it,
Yeah.
um, and it's funny because it plays into the law of attraction. Like when you're not feeling worthy, the universe is just automatically like, okay, well, you don't feel worthy, so we're not going to send anything your way. And then,
Right. Right.
then you kind of go in circles
Well,
because you're manifesting that.
yeah, I think to back to your point to like, you know, we just need sometimes when we feel like that, we need time to like recoup, even if it's 1 second, right? Like I
Oh yeah.
like I have a 5 minute rule. If I'm having a bad day, you know, I get 5 minutes to get it all out and then get back together. You know what I mean? Because like, you know, because there's a lot of people who depend on you know, business owners, and you know, especially you can say that about your industry, who depend on you being top notch to make sure that, you know, that you can help them the best that you can and that they need, right? So
Absolutely.
how do you get through those? Because I mean, it happens to everybody, whether it's in, you know, the energy body talk, alternative holistic healing industry versus, somebody who's in the corporate world? Like, how do you deal with that on a day-to-day basis?
So I'm very like woo.
Yeah.
And when I am having a bad day or I am high stressed, I will go blast music in my living room and like dance or do squats or something to get like my body physically moving to work that
Yeah.
energy out. I will schedule like a self-care session, whether that's massage or foot zone or energy work from another practitioner, just something for me to like help release that. And I journal a lot.
Oh, yeah.
And I
Oh,
don't like sit down and talk about my day. Like if something's bothering me, if I'm frustrated, I just sit and write like I'm so frustrated, and then I rip it up. So it's
yeah.
not like I
Yeah.
have a journal. I have like scratch paper and sticky notes that I randomly write whatever comes to mind at that particular time, and I get it
Yeah.
out and I rip it up and throw it away. And
Yeah.
that's what works for me.
Yeah.
But it's kind of trial and error for whatever
Yeah.
calls
Like
to
those
you. Like
coping things. Yeah.
yeah. So you just kind of have to try what you like and what works and then go with it, I feel like.
Right. Well, yeah. And like that's so true. I mean, a lot of people bring that up, and a lot of people have gotten to this, like culturally, we're in this point where like journaling means you write down like everything that happens in the day and it's detailed. But like journaling really just is writing, just I call it a brain dump. Like that's what I do.
Yeah.
Like whenever I get stressed, I start writing stuff down, and I realize like, once I've written everything down, what felt like a million things in my head turns out to be like 2 or 3. And out of those 2 or 3 or 5 or whatever, I can get rid of, 90% of it. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
And you can
Because you're
work
like,
through
oh,
those
well,
little
I
things.
shouldn't have been worried about that or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Like I think the human brain thinks like over 50,000 thoughts or something in a day. It's some
Yeah.
ridiculous number. I don't know the exact one, but
Yeah.
some crazy amount. And
Right.
if by writing that stuff down, like you said, you're left with maybe a handful that you can work through and actually process instead
Right.
of just this big jumble mess, and then you can't function, you can't remember, you can't think, and you're stressed because your mind is just
Yeah.
filled with gunk.
Right. Right. Well, yeah, I do, my own like technique where I write down like, okay, what's going on, you write it down. Are you frustrated? Yes. But then I write down like I have one like line that's like, can I control it? And if I can't, then I've got to, what we were talking about it. You're talking about breathing techniques. Like I work through my breathing techniques to just let that go. You know what I mean? Like just let it happen or let it go or whatever. Right. Do you, what kind of breathing techniques do you work with and do you prescribe and things like that?
So the breathing techniques that I use are particular, like specific for Bodytalk. So when
Okay.
we release whatever we're releasing, I walk you through specific breathings. Usually it's like 6 seconds, the 11 seconds, and then
Sure.
we do different tapping like hand positions. And so
Yeah.
combined, that's what actually releases it. But
Yeah.
there's so many
There's a lot of,
amazing like breathing techniques.
yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of breathing techniques like that work for a lot of different things. It's amazing how much your breathing can change everything. There's that guy, he's called the Iceman, who can like control his breath and sit in ice water and actually like warm up his core body temperature just by breathing. Have you ever seen that
Yeah.
guy? If not, you
Oh
should.
yeah, I've seen
He's
him. Yeah,
super cool. I
it's
can't remember his
insane.
name. I can't remember his
I
name.
can't remember either, but I know exactly who you're talking about.
He's super cool, and like that's amazing. People don't, and like as simple as breathing, right? How do you teach people to breathe? Like through their mouth, through their nose? What do you teach?
In their nose and out the nose.
Yeah, that's good though. Your nose is like your body's filter. People don't get that either.
Yeah, well, yeah, you like your nose. You're right. Like it is what filters everything. And if you look at
Yeah.
any animal, none of them breathe through their mouth.
Yeah,
Only
that's
humans, and we haven't always been that way.
right.
So it's so important to breathe in your nose and out your nose.
Yeah, yeah, because it's a muscle, right? People's Oh man, I read the book by James Nestor called, I think, Breathe or Breath or something. And yeah, it was not
Yes.
the whole book is nuts. But yeah, so I love it. So what made you, okay, so you're an energy healer, you start this up, you're a body talk, you have your experiences, but like starting a business, like some people don't get to that point where they're like, I'm going to double down, I'm going to make this a business, I'm going to start being an entrepreneur or whatever you tell yourself, and I'm going to go for it. What made you actually start the business?
I think it was just years of failing
Mm,
is really what it was. Like I've done a lot of network marketing, which I love,
yeah.
but I was never fulfilled. And like I've been a stay-at-home mom since I um, was sick a few years ago. And so like I was just home and I kind
Mm,
of lost my identity, I feel like, in a lot of ways. Just
okay.
being a mom, as amazing as it is, it's kind of isolating and lonely. And energy was the one thing that helped me, so I knew it could help other people. And when I decided to become a practitioner, I just went all in. Like I was to the point where I'm like, I'm gonna sink or swim. I'm gonna figure out how to swim, because
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
so just not fulfilled in my
Right.
life. And that's the honest truth, which is sad to say. When you have kids, you want to feel fulfilled, but I really wasn't.
Yeah.
And so this is my selfish thing
Yeah.
that I do for me, but I do it for other people,
Right. Well, and a lot of people get like that. Well, especially when you're in one of these things where you're helping people, it can kind of feel like, I'm charging somebody for it. Like, and some people could ask like, why are you charging it? But I'm a proponent of like, people need that. And like when people meet you, they feel like they're investing in themselves, which is like the best investment that you can make outside of anything else. You always double down on yourself, right? And so
Absolutely.
I think it's great that you meet these people, that you decided to start a business, because I mean, a lot of people, A, they don't start, right? And B, they get into all this stuff. But what's like been the best thing about owning a business? Like if you're going to give somebody advice on owning a business, like what would that be?
The best thing is that I make my own schedule,
That's
and I
fine.
don't, like, I've done corporate jobs, and as great as they can be, I never felt like I fit in a corporate industry. And so
Yeah, yeah.
I always knew I wanted to have my own business. But having the flexibility of just doing what I want when I want
Yeah, for real.
has been the greatest blessing, because I can be there for my kids when they need to. Like we homeschool as well, so I'm
Oh,
able to help them, and I'm
really
able
cool.
to see my clients and do everything in between, and just kind of work around everything to what fits our needs that day.
Yeah, and that's the dream, right? The freedom of being able to do your own thing. And then not only that, but the freedom of taking something that you already love and making it the thing that supports you and your family, right? I don't think there's anything better than that.
There really isn't.
You
Like
know, and
it's
go ahead.
I was just going to say it's priceless. Like when you go after your dreams and you invest in yourself, like I honestly can't ever put a price on it, because it
Yeah.
it took me 30 years to actually do that for myself. And looking back, I'm like, I wish I would have done this a
Why did it
decade
take
ago,
so long?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, right. Well, and again, another thing, like people just they just get that scared, whatever they're scared of, that keeps them from doing what they want to do, and then they just end up, in jobs that they don't like, or whatever it might be. And not saying you can't be happy in a job that you don't like, because certainly, like, there are days when you're working or when I'm working for ourselves or whatever, that it seems like, man, what did I get myself into? You know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah.
You just
Oh
fight
yeah.
through it, but the pros outweigh the cons most of the time. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
They do, for sure.
Yeah, that's cool. That's really cool. Well, and it's been a long time for people to hear these things, and there's a lot of inspiration that comes from meeting people like you, and hearing people talk about owning their own business. Hopefully, it sparks some lights. That's what I like seeing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think that's the beautiful thing about healing, is like we all
Yeah,
have been through a lot of stuff. Like you never
yeah,
know somebody's story, and most most often than not, you are like so taken back by the time you actually hear somebody's story, and you're like, I did not expect that from just like sitting here talking to you. Like, I had no idea you'd been through so much.
Yeah.
But in that you're able to help people through that same storm. Like, you've been through everything that you've been through, and so then you're able to like help and guide the people that are struggling, that were where you once were, you know. And I feel like it's just this beautiful ripple effect of like,
Yeah.
I've been there, like, come with me, I can help you. And just to take people on your journey and to help them and to guide them. And I feel like that is what is so beautiful about life right now, is that we're all, as crazy and chaotic as the world is right now, there is a huge community of people that are coming together and just healing.
Oh, yes.
It's beautiful.
Well, and realizing like that connection is like what heals us, right? Like with connection with ourselves, which is something that, you know, at least that when you've been talking, that I've heard that, you know, like connecting with yourself and really like listening to yourself, and then connecting with other people, like that's what we've missed. And so, yeah, I feel like there's going to be even more of a move towards these kind of like holistic alternative healing, because the main thing in my mind, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but in my mind, it's about connection, right? Like it brings us together with ourselves and with other people.
Yeah, I totally agree with you.
Yeah. And you know, it's just, it's really like I said, it's amazing. But okay, as far as like, you know, when you've been through this, you know, I'm sure you've had people coach you through this and help you out, and you've watched videos and gone through these things. But what's the best piece of advice that you've ever been given in your life? Whether it's for business or just for life in general, or if it's for your industry, like what was it?
My the best advice, because I one, I'm a woman, okay?
Okay.
Two, I am a people pleaser. Like, I hate saying no. I think it's another just part of our culture. It's just,
Yeah.
we want to always make everyone else happy. The
Right.
biggest advice is don't take other people's opinions as truth.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
That's
good.
like, that is my favorite thing. And when somebody says something that kind of like triggers me, or like says something that I don't agree with, I'm like, okay, well, that's their truth. That is not my truth. And so just to really like almost take your power back and remember who you are and what you want and what you stand for.
Yeah.
And just because somebody else has a different opinion, like that, they can live their truth that way, but I will not live my truth that way.
Yeah. And, you know, and it's just, again, like you said earlier, listening to your intuition, listening to yourself. Because, right. Yeah. You know, because I used to fight that, like, and the going over the definition of truth would be like another hour-long conversation, I'm sure. But there are things that work for people that don't work for other people. And so, yeah. And just to take so I love that piece of advice, like, especially when you're starting a business, especially if it's an uncommon business, you know, people are going to throw everything in the book at you. And you just, like you said, like, you just got to take it as it comes and just not take everything as true, and just find out what works for you. Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Because I feel like we have, like, especially being entrepreneurs, like, I feel like you just get a lot of naysayers, and it's usually the people closest to you. Like, my dad still is like, when are you going to get a real job? I'm like, I have a real job. Yeah. You know? And so it's just,
you know, I'd be like, hey, this money spends the exact same.
Yep, exactly.
Money spends the same,
so,
right?
Yes. So like, his truth is corporation living. My truth is entrepreneur living, you know, just different truth. Yeah.
Well, and I think a lot of that has to do with some generational stuff where, like, you know, you go to college, you find the company, you get the gold watch, you retire when you're 65, you go do what you got to do. And you're right. And that, if that works for you, man, go do what you got to do. But like, what my biggest rebuttal to that is like, look, when a recession hits, when a depression hits, like, nobody's fair. Everybody's fair game. No one's safe. Right? Whether you're an entrepreneur or you think you have this steady income, you know what I'm saying? Like, no one's safe. And so then why not? So if that's the case, right? If it hits everybody the same, then why not do what you love to do and have fun?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's just not, and that's how I think. And that's what I tell people when they, when they tell me this similar things, like you work commission or, cause I work sales for a long time, or you're an entrepreneur, like, what about XYZ? And I'm just like, hey, if we all go down the same, I might as well have fun and do what I need to do for me,
Yeah, I totally agree.
So, well, yeah, well, I appreciate you being on here. And I appreciate you talking about this stuff and really opening up our eyes. But did I miss anything? Especially and I asked that question, especially with people in your industry, because I might miss something that you love talking about or that you wanted to talk about, but I just don't know at all. Right. Like, did I miss anything?
I don't think so. I think this was a great conversation. And
I
like,
think so.
if anybody is like on the fence about Bodytalk or anything like that, go try it.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
please, like, try it once, because then you'll know if it's for you and you want to come back, or you're never going to do it again.
Right.
But
Well,
at
yeah.
least
Yeah.
do that to yourself, to be open enough to try it, because it might be the one thing that really transitions your life, and just be open to it. I feel like.
Yeah, and people should, and that's great advice for anything. Like, just don't be afraid to try something different. You know what I mean? I think it's a really good way to. I think it's a good way to live. Like, because if you keep trying the same things over and over, and you're not happy with it, try something different.
Yes, totally.
If people want to get involved, want your services, want to get involved with you, how do they find you? How do they find your business?
So I'm on Facebook and Instagram. It's just under Amber Zaccardi on both of them.
Okay. Beautiful.
So super
a
simple.
Business website or anything you want people to funnel into?
My business page is just linked right onto my Facebook page.
Okay.
I'm working on building a website that should be done by the end of the year.
Cool. Right on. Well, good for you. Well, and good. And people, and if that's how you do your business, then good for you. I think that's, I just like, I do these episodes and people find my, text me or find me on Facebook. Like, how do I get a hold of that person? So I'm glad we could do this, but yeah, I really appreciate you coming. I really appreciate all the knowledge and the experience that you shared with us. And I thought it went great. So thank you so much for being here.
Yeah. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. It was so nice to meet you.
Yeah. Nice to meet you as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Talk to you later.